Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode of The Comic Source. This is a crowdfunding episode. I have a real treat for you today. A little departure from comics, but trust me, it's all about story. And it's my pleasure to welcome Todd Stashwick to the show. Todd, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, man. I wrote a comic.
Yeah.
So it all comes together. I wrote a comic with an artist named Dennis Calero called Devil Inside, and it's free to read online. DevilInsideComic.com, and I'm also co-writing on a Black Panther Captain America video game called 1943 Rise of Hydra. So it's still in the ballpark of what it is that you do.
100%. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to story, and we're going to talk quite a bit about story today, everybody, and how that has informed this project that Todd has going with a bunch of his friends, leaning into RPG. So you might know him as a captain from Star Trek. You might know him from his role in 12 Monkeys. You might know and love him like I do from the Who Is No One podcast that ties into the No One comic, which is one of the best comics out on stands today. But going back to your childhood, Todd, going back to, again, your love of story and creating, you have this ProgCore
ProgCore Fantasy, Dark Age of Fear.
Yes, it is a mouthful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And yes, very, very much a huge project on Kickstarter. It's already halfway funded, everybody, with about 18 days ago as we record this. So it's doing fantastic. Let's start there. Let's let everybody know, what is this project about? You know, it is as easily as you can sum it up, because it is a very large project.
It's a sprawling, look, go big or go home. I had already dabbled in the TTRPG space with a cocktail book that I co-created with a man named Brandon Cleely called Mystic Libations. So I kickstarted that with Brandon a number of years back. We had artists, we had RPG creators, we had people that created, this guy Roy Hansel, who made all of our recipes. So I'd already kind of enjoyed dipping in and creating third-party content in a way. Then, speaking of comics, a few years back, there was almost an opportunity for David and I to pitch a D&D comic. So we came up with a story, we came up with a whole pitch, and we were really excited and raring to go. And then that never happened. And then along the lines of that, we looked at Mystic Libations. See, it all ties together. David did all the RPG elements in Mystic Libations, like the magic items and NPCs and whatnot. He's my dungeon master that brought me back to the game. We were like, well, what if we create our own IP and we create our own comic set in our own world, kind of inspired originally by Mystic Libations. Maybe we set that as a pillar and then build out from there. But the thing started to take on a life of its own. So David and I started exploring what it was about fantasy that we loved, that got us into it, that lit the fuse. I don't know where to look, man. Am I looking at you? Where does it look like my eyes are?
Yeah, you can look. Just look right.
I'll look at you, because I feel like I'm getting this sort of half gaze, like a cat staring into nothing. So we started digging into what we love about D&D, what we love about dark fantasy, where that love started. And that's when we really started unpacking what it was that we wanted to do. And yes, it's a sprawling project. We were both young nerdlings, and we were watching The Hobbit, the Rankin and Bass Hobbit, and that animation style, and that style of storytelling that was about small people, not literally in stature because they're hobbits, but of small beginnings, that then took on great tasks, met with large obstacles and a lot of adversity. And that excited us, and that led to Bakshi's Lord of the Rings and Excalibur and Dragon Slayer and Legend, and each one of those stories is about small in stature people taking on big things, encountering a wonderful, mysterious, and dangerous world. And then at the time that we were watching all those things and playing Dungeons and Dragons, in the late 70s, early 80s. We were also listening to the music of Styx and Zeppelin and Kansas and Jethro Tull and all that great prog rock of the era. And so the initial idea for the word came from the idea that when you say steampunk, you mean this kind of entertainment. If I say cyberpunk, I mean this kind of entertainment. So if I said anime fantasy, it brings to mind this kind of entertainment. But I realized that there wasn't, other than the term dark fantasy, there wasn't a term to me that codified the vibe of all of that stuff. When you take Rankin and Bass Hobbit, there is DNA in legend and in Styx and Zeppelin songs. There's a DNA there that's a vibe. And so to say ProgCore was codifying a vibe, then, well, what was it about that vibe when we were first discovering RPGs that excited us? And that was, like I was saying, the wonder and the mystery and the danger and how you can approach your games to heighten those things. So we're like, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to go big. We're going to try to create a multimedia experience. We love those animated movies. Let's make a little animated short. We loved all that prog rock music. Let's make an album with Jason Charles Miller and Joffrey Schumann that celebrates those soaring guitars and that synth and that creepy, wonderful vibe. Let's make an actual play, but shoot it documentary style so you feel like you're in the basement with us playing Dungeons and Dragons. Let's make a source book that is filled with tips, advice, hints, mechanics that help you heighten wonder, mystery, and danger in your games. And then let's create a campaign setting that celebrates those ideas, that encapsulates that 70s, 80s vibe in the way we tell these stories. So we enlisted the help of all these great writers, all these great animators, all these musicians to create each one of these departments so that the ProgCore experience will be a gestalt of dark fantasy celebrating wonder, mystery, and danger. How was that? Did I do a good job?
That was fantastic. And again, it's huge. I don't know that I'd use the word sprawling. It's epic, man. Because here's the thing: you and your partner David, you're kind of looking to change things here. There's so many layers and multiple meanings. The prog and prog rock, everybody. If you don't know, it stands for progressive, right? Because they really were at the forefront. They were doing something different. They were storytelling within, this big, grandiose music that was amazing. It would move you and give you goosebumps and what have you. You bring that over to the fantasy world, and there's a few things. One of the things people love about tabletop role-playing game is the sense of community, right? Which is something Kickstarter is known for. But if you go back, even you're using the original rules, or you're using the 5th edition 5e, which is probably the most common, and not just in Dungeons and Dragons, but in all sorts of
Pathfinder, just Cypher system.
It's ubiquitous.
Polymorph,
it's everywhere. But still, that's from 2014, and at the end of the day, the world has changed a little bit. And I've heard you say on other interviews you've given about this project, it's about, I'm going to stop the video game thing that I learned of min-maxing my character to advance and what have you, because that's you're sitting on a table with your friends, but you've got tunnel vision on your character. Let's bring the sense of community back to the game. We're all going to advance together, and it's about story.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
So a couple things, sort of touching back on what you said about progressive. Whether well-intended or intended, a lot of that stuff from the 70s and 80s was very sexist, was very racist, was very homophobic. We want a bigger table. So we want to keep all that delicious flavor, but make the table for everybody. Actually be progressive with our ideas. So we say it is new wine in old bottles. So you get this great vintage flavor of look, but the wine is better for everybody. There's more invitation to the party. And again, I think it's just a sign of the times. It's true of so many art forms that when you look back, they don't age well. You know, there was a lot of people that weren't invited to the party, intentionally or unintentionally, and so, you know, they weren't the good old days for everybody. So we want that opportunity to create a table for everybody to sit at, and still have all that wonder, mystery, and danger from those vibes. So that's one thing. The second thing is what you were talking about, min-maxing. I think a lot of current D&D is power fantasy. They're giving a lot more powers to lower level characters. It's harder to die. I think a lot of current D&D is more like the Avengers and less like, say, Lord of the Rings or Ursula K. Le Guin. Doesn't mean there aren't people that use magic. Gandalf uses magic. Clearly, Legolas has powers. I think Aragorn's quite heightened. But the hobbits and the dwarves, they were just using their wits and their weapons, right? And so the idea to heighten the danger by maybe reducing the amount of hit points you can get back on a long rest. Maybe you need each other more for healing purposes to get through the adventure. Maybe your character isn't your backstory. We spend all of this time now, and I think video games has had a lot of effect on this, where it is about uber customization. And it's book after book of subclass and feats and subclass upon subclass upon subclass, where your character then is your face is in your character sheet so much of the time. And again, that's a style of play, and if you want to play that way, please. This is just an opportunity to get you up and in the story with the group even more. And so by going, well, you'll discover who your character is by your interactions with the players. Maybe have a very simple backstory that will inform the DM, will inform how other characters receive you, but I think this intense focus on, like when we meet Frodo, we go, he's a hobbit in the Shire who was leading a bucolic life, and then great responsibility was thrust on him, and he was thrust into adventure. His backstory, was he a farmer? Was he he read under trees? But what was interesting about him was knowing he was an innocent thrust into a world that was going to challenge that innocence. And it was the experiences along the way that shaped who this character is and tested the mettle of his being. So we want to burn clean with this approach. We want to burn clean, and so we're making the playable classes elves, dwarves, half-elves, humans, halflings, and half-orcs. Basically, very player's handbook, but like if there's tieflings in this world, they're wondrous, and we run into them, and they are wondrous. Aarakocra are amazing bird people that might live in the forest, or tabaxi who live in this, and as we encounter them as players, they're wondrous. Like if you grew up in a small farm town and you're suddenly running into something that has horns and a tail and can shoot fire from its hands, it's scary and exciting and wonderful, as opposed to creating a scenario where everything is special, then nothing is.
Right.
In a way. Now, I am not looking askance on people that love that kind of anime world where it is filled with I'm a dragonborn and I'm a tabaxi and I'm a this, and that is its own style of play. We're just saying, hey, it's also fun to play like this, and let's give this a try. It's not definitive, it's an option.
What I find really interesting, so I think if you go back to the earliest days when RPGs were first starting out, it was about the collaboration between people, maybe a little more so than now, certainly the min-max style of play. But it was about, my contention is we all love story. That's why movies and TV and everything blows up. When you are down, head down in your character sheet, you're creating a story, but it's in your head. You're not really sharing it. You have your idea of where you want your character to go. It sounds like in the system you guys have created, in the world you've created, you're still creating story, but now it's a collaboration, and you get
100%.
those goosebumps, and it's greater than the sum of the parts.
And I do believe people playing 5e as is right now have those moments. We are trying to create opportunity for more of those moments. I do not want to say people are doing it wrong. They're not. I'm not old man shaking my fist at the sky. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that I think the grit makes the pearl. I think by adding and we're not the first to do it. There are other systems out there that the grimdark world of other systems. But we're adding in our own campaign setting and our own experience with these things, maybe insight that we have found in gameplay to share with people. I think to what you're saying is, yeah, I think if we burn cleaner while we're playing, it gives us an opportunity to invest in the party even more. Our favorite phrase is, Our sharpest weapon is our wits, and our greatest magic is our party. Doesn't mean you don't have weapons. It doesn't mean you don't have magic. But I think the real magic is encouraging other people. Oh, you can do this thing. I need you right now. I need you to heal right now. Or I can heal you right now. Or because you're not going to just sleep it off and wake up the next day hunky-dory. Because the way we're going to approach hit points. I think there is a way, and so we're going to give hints, advice, tips, approaches on how to really maximize I return to it every time, wonder, mystery, and danger, and less about I will spend a week working on my character, their subclass, picking all my spells. We used to, not to say the good old days were better, because, again, they weren't good for everybody. But we would roll up our character at the table and then jump in with it. Mm-hmm. And we would roll the dice, and then whatever the scores were would tell us who our character was. Oh, well, the scores fell into this place. I guess I'm a fighter, or I'm a magic user, or I'm a rogue, based on my scores. Not, if you're going to be a rogue, put your score there. If you're going to be a... So I think there's wonderful surprise and discovery in our approach. And it's also in the way that you explain things, what you choose to reveal to your players, what you choose to withhold from your players, to create that sense of mystery, to create that sense of wonder. We've all been playing D&D, and whether you came to it in 2014 or in 1979, we all know what an owlbear is. We all probably have what owlbear hit points are memorized and where their weak spots are. There's a big push to balance encounters. I think if we stop balancing every encounter, we create a sense of danger. So that maybe the players go, can we survive this one? I don't know. Maybe we bail. And we take that attack of opportunity, but leave with our hides. Or maybe the monsters run because they feel outgunned. I think there's opportunity to keep that vibrant world alive where you round a corner and you see a red dragon, but you're level 3.
Yeah, you better get out.
Go.
Yeah.
I think because of video games, and I love games, I write in games, but I think video games have created, except for like Elden Ring, they've created a scenario where you clear a level and then you move on to the next level. I clear a room and I move on to the next room, and I think a lot of approach to playing is, well, I have 6 players, and they fight this many kobolds. Okay, they will defeat all of them. And then we move on to the next one. And I think that's to build in a sense of accomplishment, to help you level up, to help you, all of those things. I get it. But I also think that it can rob the experience of danger.
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct. And again, we're not saying that's the wrong way to play. That might be what you enjoy. That's a lot of fun. But, man, there's so much fun in facing the unknown. And at the end of the day, right, you're invested in your character. You're invested in your party. If you can level together, I love the saying, like a rising tide floats all ships, right? You all come up together. But the thing is, it's still a game. It's still fun. It's still a sense of community. And if you fail, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Tell my tale.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the sense of community and collaborating to create a story more than it is about getting to.
And I have dice, and I'll roll up another character.
Yeah.
But there is, like, we see all these great movies. There is the dark night of the soul where somebody bites it. And then everybody moves on. I think a lot of current D&D has been designed to fall in love with your character, to write all these amazing backstories, to subclass and min-max, blah, 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 blah. And then there's this white knuckling of this, so every encounter gets balanced. And then you lose this sense. I had a moment, I had characters, speaking of, I don't know if you can see my Tomb of Horrors other side. There it is. I had a character crawl into the mouth in the Tomb of Horrors, and I had to look at her and say, "You cease to exist." And she went, "Excuse me?" I said, "Yeah, you cease to exist." And that was a moment at the table where everybody's like, and they will never forget that moment at the table. There's a lot of moments they fought things, they fought skeletons, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that moment was fun and exciting and scary and really only happens in TTRPG because it's an improvised game and these bad boys determine the outcome.
Yeah, it's random. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the technical aspects of this, Todd. So, Thier is the world you've created. If I want to play in that world and I want to play campaign, I don't need anything else. I can back the campaign. I can get the resources and get all the rewards and tiers.
Okay, so do you have the rest of your question?
But if I love Greyhawk, let's say, I can take elements, right? Like, so talk a little bit about the difference and what's available to play as standalone, and
so the
bring
book
us into my world.
So the book, the first half of the book is going to be those tips, hints, advice, and approach. What does it mean to play a game ProgCore style? And it's just a word that we came up with to codify our approach to gaming, right? So to say to play a game ProgCore style. And that will say, all right, well, if you're going to play ProgCore style, whether you're playing in Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms or Eberron, to play ProgCore style, well, long rest doesn't give you all your hit points back, for example, right? Maybe every encounter isn't balanced. Like, so you go into, as a DM, this is how I will prep this game, and I will make it clear to my table, these are the ways that we're going to all agree to play. So when you approach an encounter, you can't go, oh, we better get to a long rest so that I can sleep off and get all my hit points back. Because it's this sort of respawn, reset like a video game. Instead, the idea that the wear and tear of the adventure is going to have consequences. Danger. And mystery. And how am I going to approach these traps if I know that I can't just roll up all my hit dice and get all my... Maybe I need to rely during this short rest on my partner to help me get my hit points back through magic, through medicine, through what have you, but then they don't get a long rest. Or they don't get a short rest. So it's a lot of give and take and creates interesting dynamics. So the tips, advice, hints, and approach section can be applied to any setting. But they will really shine in Dark Age of Thier, which is our campaign setting, which is designed to support all of these ideas. And the way that we're going to show the Dark Age of Thier is through individual stories that will help inspire you, as opposed to a gazetteer style, which says, this is the land, these are the people in the land, these are the magic items in the land. Da, 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 da. It's going to be told through a narrative that may contradict each other because of myth, because of stories that got passed down. Maybe this was an epic poem. Maybe it's from the point of view of the dragons. And who's the reliable narrator? One of our stories is from the point of view of two crows. So it's this idea that you go, oh, that's cool. I love that land, and I love that magic item that was in the story. Because I get a lot of my one-shot ideas from reading books and watching movies. So this is an idea of going, get the feeling of fear through the literature, through the music, through the animation, and then you can gain from there using the tips, advice, and hints and approach that are in the first half of the book.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because here's how I kind of interpret that. So, yeah, I want to play a new campaign, I want to play in a new world, or what have you. It has everything I need. It has the rules, it has the mechanics, it has whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still not telling me how to play. I'm going to immerse myself in the world. I'm going to read the stories, and I'm going to create my own story, from that inspiration. That then me along, whether I'm the DM who's kind of guiding everybody, or I'm part of the party, but me and my friends, me and my group that play together, now we're going to build our own theater story. We're going to build our own.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear the games that grow out of this foundation that we're building. I mean, we are probably, depending on how well we fund, we will have adventures that we've written, like modules, if you will.
Right.
But the system is agnostic. So if you want to play Pathfinder, great. If you want to play polymorph mazes, great. But here's a way that you can play these games to really heighten the wonder, mystery, danger. That's the mantra.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to pause here just for a second. I'm going to remind everybody, as I always do, we do the crowdfundings. Maybe you're here because you love me and you love comics, and that's great, and RPG stuff is not your thing. At the end of the day, it's story. You should definitely try it. I promise you'll enjoy it. Or maybe you'd love to, this is your thing and you'd love to join, but you just don't have the means right now. We know times are tough. The other way you can help out Todd and his huge team of collaborators, and David, his co-creator, I guess you'd say, is share this on social media, right? There are plenty of people out there who might not be aware that this campaign is going on. We need to get this in front of as many eyes as possible so this thing funds, so it can grow. Again, what Todd was saying about let's get everybody to the table. That's what we're talking about here. Share this on social media. Tell your friends about it. Let's let everybody know.
That's the goal, right?
There's a seat for everybody at this table. So
yeah.
So
that's the goal. Is we want to help you as a dungeon master to create that butterflies, that excitement, that edge of your seat. Focus on story, focus on the group, focus on the moment-to-moment of the play, and get you around the table in your game room, at your kitchen table, and even if you don't play, the stories are going to be great, the music's going to be great, the animation's going to be great. If you want to whet your appetite, we're going to do this cool actual play that has Anjali Bhamani, it has Mark Bernardin, it has Drea Letamendi, it has Felicia Day, Yuri Lowenthal, myself with David Dungeon Mastering, so you can see a game being run, but we're shooting it documentary style in my nerd lair, in my little sanctum sanctorum space to play D&D. We're going to shoot it like you're a fly on the wall and at the table.
Yeah, so if you're just a lover of fantasy, you don't necessarily, maybe it's not for you, but there's a lot here, and it goes back to what we've used this word over and over, story, right? We all love story. That's why we're here. So reminder, link in the show notes, everybody, to go and check out the campaign. And one of the things that you'll see there on the campaign, and we've used the terms a lot, these three pillars, Todd, that you've been talking about, the danger and the wonder,
mystery, and danger, yeah.
So we kind of understand why or what those are and how you're trying to bring them back to the game and to the table for the players to collaborate and create this story. Let's talk about why. Why these three? What is it about these three elements that you want to bring back to the game? Why are you focusing on these three?
Well, I don't want to say back to the game. I do think it exists at everyone's table, but we want to do it with a sense of intentionality, and here are ways to really heighten those
Have
ideas.
More of it.
Yeah, with an intentionality. Why? Well, again, if you take wide-eyed Todd Stashwick in 1977, whether he was seeing Star Wars or whether he was seeing The Hobbit, there was this sense of, wow, what is going to happen? And that feeling when we first started playing, again, whether it was 5 years ago or 40, that sense of what's around the corner. We are such curious beings, that wonder, that staring at something that's breathtaking, that discovery of something that's breathtaking. A mystery. Engage my brain. Make me curious. Make me want to poke hard at this world rather than just say, I'm going to look for traps. Tell me what you're doing. How are you looking for traps? Are you dusting the floor? Are you looking for seams? Are you putting your ear? Are you knocking for hollow spaces? But right now, it's all boiled down to, I'm going to roll for traps. I rolled a 16. Yeah, you don't find any. And that's sort of often how we move on. But I want to see the world moment to moment. Like, let's get our hands dirty. How do you look for traps? How do you investigate? What, like, when you're seeing, I want to investigate the body. Are you opening the jacket? Are you reaching into the pockets? Like, what does all this mean? Rather than just a sweeping skill check. And then dropping pieces of information that may not mean anything, but make a player go, hang on, you said this a while ago. Oh, did I? You know what I mean? Yeah. What is lurking in the shadows of the periphery of the story? We don't know everything. And I think, again, when Bilbo met Beorn, that was a moment. He'd never seen anything like a man who could turn into a bear. You know what I mean? Like, that was a big deal. So that sense of wonder and mystery there. And then danger, is that bear person going to kill me? And then heighten that lethality of the game. And I'm not saying we want people to die a lot. We want to help the players really depend on each other to get through a world that is not built for them. It's not cozy and nice and designed for them to do it. And again, there's a lot of games out there. Murkborn, Shadow Dark. There's a lot of games out there that Blades in the Dark that really also heighten this sense of danger. And so that's just part of what we're trying to do, right? Yeah. So those things are the reason I turned to story, is for a heightened sense of wonder, a heightened sense of mystery, and a heightened sense of danger. I like it when things are scary and harrowing and people just squeak by the skin of our teeth. As I say, there's no bad rolls, only good story.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we play the games with our friends and what have you to have fun. And going back to what I said before, we all love story and creating story. And realize you're like, I'm not a writer, I'm not a creative, or whatever. But you're sitting at the table and you can craft your own story along with your friends, and God, that's just so fun. You mentioned before your kind of your formative years, falling in love with this game and creating story and what have you. You don't think you'd be an actor or a creative without that, right?
No, it's inseparable. I think, I've told this story before, but my first action figures were Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. In 1974, I'll tell you later. I was 6 in 1974, and I received my first Star Trek action figures, which then led to me watching the original series, watching the animated series. Then I received my Mego Planet of the Apes action figures, and all the Marvel and DC action figures, Spider-Man. So I was doing scenarios, making the action figures were my avatar, but I was already playing, right? And then Star Wars and The Hobbit and D&D and all of these role-playing things Whether I was in the backyard pretending to be Han Solo with my cousin being Luke and our buddy Matt being Chewie, or we were around the table and I was playing Morton, fighter magic user in our AD&D games. So I've always been invested in story and like heightened imagined worlds that led to me wanting to pursue this stuff as a performer. So it is inherent. People go, do you think your D&D has informed how you act? I'm like, well, it's all coming from the same place of wanting to tell good stories.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we all love story. So we mentioned how epic this thing is. How there's just all kinds of stuff. You have the tips. You have the source book, the rules, what have you. You mentioned before about some of the other things, like doing an album, doing the documentary style. I think there's even a candle that's...
there's a candle!
Done. Yeah.
You can see Christoph Vischer in that display. He's in the bottom right-hand corner. He's a candle maker through Cantrip Candles. And so one of the adventures that I ran at GaryCon was called Into the Charred Mountains. And that's one of our, part of our setting. And I was like, oh, that would be a great theme for a set, and let's work on that. And he's like, oh, I love it. I see what you're doing. I get the vibe. You see that great dragon art. Our dragons are lethal, and they're not friendly. Man and mortals have made enemies of the dragons. You can't have a dragon as a pet. There's a lethality to them. There's a dangers to them, but they're also super old and super wise. And the progenitors of the world as a whole. They were the first.
Wow, that's interesting.
And that painting is Bob Eggleton. Part of the lore is that there was the ether, and there was, we have this little thing that I'm writing. There was the ether and the shade, and the first was the dream of dragons. And then dragons were too chaotic to live in the ether, but they were too ordered to live in the shade, so they created fear as a place to put their feet. Mm-hmm. It is the first land. So that is the first time that they were corporeal, according to them.
Right.
Who knows? It happened so long ago. It's all myth. And so from them, when the dragons slept, the mortals grew around them, and then the dragons were the protectors of man, and said, and the way dragons create more dragons is they create a shell that pulls energy from the aether and the shade, and the energy within creates the next dragon inside that. And so the dragon said, oh, it's like the apple or the fire. Just don't touch it, man.
Forbidden, yeah.
Just don't touch my eggs. And so, of course, you tell a man not to do something.
He does it.
He does. And there's the myth of Omerus, who was the first wizard, the first sorcerer who cracked the first egg, got imbued with aether and shade magic, and that gave birth to the Enlightened Age, when man realized, oh, we could have this stolen magic and become powerful. And then this massive age grew up, and then the dragons said, enough, you stole from us, and the dragon wrath began. And then it has reduced society back to the Dark Age of fear. So it is a society crawling out of the ashes of a once great place. The dragons have receded, and the dragons were protecting the denizens of fear from the shade creatures that are now pushed into fear as well. And as the dragons receded to the mountains, to the sea, to wherever, well, now the shade are there, and then there was the Shade Wars. So it's like we have all of this great mythology and history to pull from. But it is a rougher time. If current D&D is more like Italian Renaissance, this is much more like the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages. Yeah.
So, again, everybody, I mean, fantastic story, fantastic foundation. You may not be into role-playing, but doesn't mean there's not a place for you at this table just to enjoy the story, enjoy the fantasy, enjoy the legend, because going back to this idea of bringing in all these other elements, make it immersive, right? Make it immersive. I have this smell I associate with the world. I have this music that you guys are creating that I associate with this world. And I can just you know, we all sometimes need to escape our day to day, right? The monotony
100%.
of 9 to 5.
You know, the band Styx and Zeppelin and Kansas were everything that I was listening to, and they were telling stories of sea journeys and castles and literally Mordor. They were taking all these old medieval sounds and these lutes and stuff, but pushing them through electric guitars and synthesizers. So again, new wine in old bottles. And so taking these tools, but bringing a flavor and these tales of yore, but doing them through a rock palette. I love it. It makes my heart sing. And we recruited the right people. Jason Charles Miller, who has this foundation in scoring video games as well as Godhead, his band. He gets it. Joffrey Schumann, who understands all that wild synth from Tangerine Dream to Bo Hansen, who did the Lord of the Rings abstract electronic jazz album. It's crazy. And Styx with their distinct synth sound. So we wanted to, and if you watch the little animation that we did, the Folly of Immerse, you can hear some of the music, that cool synthy sound that feels like it's its own vibe, man. And that dragon there is the dragon from, and that is the first dragon, and he still roams. Roams.
That's fantastic. Well, let's give everybody
that piece of art is by Bob Eggleton. He's an amazing fantasy artist.
Yeah, you if you know fantasy art, you've seen his stuff. I promise you, he's super talented. Let's give everybody a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. You and David came up with this idea, decided to make it huge and epic, and it's going to have all these different parts to it. How do you recruit all these? I mean, a lot of these are people that you guys know personally, and I'm a big believer that when you're having fun, creating things with your friends, it makes it even more fun, and that comes through.
100%.
So talk a little bit about, you know, approaching some of these people and starting to build it, and what's the experience been like? Has it been challenging at times? Has it been even more, more than you expected?
We have an embarrassment of riches of the people that we know who are already in the biz, like showrunners, Javi, Terry Metalis, television film writers, Chris Monfett. We have comic book writers, Cecil Castellucci, Bria Grant, who writes comics and horror. She's a horror director. We have my wife, who's a fantasy writer, is part of it. My son, who's a professional animator. If you look at the bottom two middle there, the blonde woman and the guy with the cowboy hat, that's my son and my wife, respectively. And if you're going to make something and spend time, make it with people you love. Mark Bernardin, very successful television and film writer and director. He directed an award-winning short. Elliot Sirota, who is an artist and a prop maker. Brian Ward, who's a television producer, works for Shout TV. It was not hard. Will Wheaton. It was not hard getting these people on board once we laid out the world that we wanted to help them craft and the breadth of the project. They were like, I'm in, what can I do? And once we announced, there was even more people that were like, how can I help? I want to be a part of it. How can I help? I want to be a part of it. Because I think they realized we're not just going, here's an RPG. We're creating a multimedia experience. And so we recruited the best of the best. These artists that we have, Maya Igni, Julia Madalena, Phil Boutte, Bob Eggleton. We have all these great people involved. Jasmine Bular, who's really well known in the TTRPG and streaming community. She created DesiQuest with Anjali Bhamani. Sean Bishop, who's an animation director, worked on the original Space Jam. So it was not hard. We sounded the horn of Gondor, and they showed up.
You know what's so fun about that? It's kind of analogous to playing a campaign, right? Like, this is your party.
This is my posse.
Yeah. These are my people. These are the people you're rolling with.
Zelda Devon, who's right in the middle there, she did the cover to Mystic Libations. So we have, and then there's Sam DeLev. They are an amazing TTRPG player as well as mechanics designer. Felicia Day, Yeah, need I say more, Felicia Day? Like, that's all you got to say. So yeah, and Elisa Teague, who's a TTRPG performer and a writer, she is writing one of the stories for us as well. So we just have a murderer's row of and a broad spectrum of talents from all over Yuri Lowenthal, from all over to lend their voice to their corner of what this is going to be.
Yeah,
and we wanted a really big table filled with so many voices, but all under the umbrella of Dark Age of Fear.
Yeah. Again, Yuri, if you're like, what does that sound? Well, yeah, he's done tons of voice work. He's
Peter Parker.
Yeah, Peter Parker. I mentioned the No
Ben
One.
10.
Yeah, I mentioned the No One podcast, which is one of my favorite. I love that
nice
comic series from Kyle Higgins. Yeah, Yuri he does voice work on there as well.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk a little bit about that. We'll pick your brain about that, Todd. But before we do that, I do want one more thing about the campaign. Why Kickstarter? I mean, this is so immersive, like I said, and it's such a good idea. I feel like you guys could have taken it somewhere and to a game publisher. And, is it just a sense of community, cutting out the middleman? Why Kickstarter?
Well, several things. This is a labor of love. And we know what it needs to be. Second, how do we take, and we'll make an album and an animation to a game publisher.
Yeah.
And an actual play.
Yeah.
We can take a book to a game publisher, but we wanted it to be more than that. We wanted to give you what we got when we first dipped our toes in dark fantasy. We wanted to give that to you. We wanted to give you a cartoon like I got the animated Hobbit. We wanted to give you music like I had Styx back in the day. We wanted to give you a book like I had the Dungeon Master's Guide with all that fun art as a kid. Like, I wanted to give you all of that surrounded experience. There was no one place that we could take it that would make it. And so we decided to open essentially our own studio.
Yeah, and it's going well so far.
So far, I believe we're creeping up on half funded.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, everybody, there's about 18 days to go. As Todd and I are sitting here recording this, 74,681 right at this moment of 150,000. Which that sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, these are your friends. You want to pay them what they're worth. It's really not.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Especially not for what you get. I mean, it's not like one person is paying that much, and that's the joy of crowdfunding, right? Like, we can all come together and pay our little part to bring this thing into the world.
Agreed.
We want
now, if you are a high roller, one of my favorite things that we are offering in collaboration with the Weathered Dragon is a game table. So I collaborated with the Weathered Dragon to create the Stashwick. I'm sitting at it right now. It is a beast. It is a beautiful. I have Lego on here right now, but it is a beautiful beast. We're creating a one-of-a-kind ProgCore Fantasy Stashwick-style game table with the Weathered Dragon. This is an heirloom piece. It's a legacy piece. He is doing it at cost, and you are backing our project, and you get all of the add-ons, all of the this. It's expensive, but if you're like, well, I was looking and in the market for a high-end game table anyway, here's an opportunity to be part of something special and exciting, and get a one-of-a-kind game table out of it.
Yeah, crowdfund it yourself with your campaign mates. You all chip in, and you have this amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Right.
I love that.
Get
7 of you all chip in. You all could walk away with a great table, or if you're a game shop.
Yeah.
And you go, this would be great in my shop for my games, and it's an investment, and you could probably write it off if it's part of your store. So I think we have a lot of really cool tiers, a lot of really cool opportunities. We have add-ons. We wanted a lot of the add-ons or the stretch goals to plus the experience. So it might be a 15-minute animated feature, a higher quality paper. So the stretch goals will increase the quality of the product as well as add-ons.
Yeah. So again, reminder everybody, we want to hit those stretch goals. We want to make sure this funds. Get it out there. Link in the show notes. Share it with your friends. Tell everybody you know. let them go check out the campaign, check out the Kickstarter campaign, and see if it's something that they would enjoy. Because again, you don't even have to be a gamer. We talked about the incredible story. Todd gave us some of the backstory, the origin of the world of Fear. So if you're a lover of fantasy or just a lover of quality story, I think there's something here for you.
There's something in here for you, yeah. And art.
Yeah, incredible art.
The art is amazing. You can see, the art is incredible.
Yeah, and it's funny, so a lot of the, well, not a lot, but a few of the people that you have that you're collaborating, they've been on the show. I've had Cecil on. I've had Mark Bernard.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Because they're, like you said, fantastic writers. Mark's done a ton of comic work. Cecil as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but speaking of comics, I got to ask how you did get involved in the Who Is No One podcast, which is kind of a companion to the No One comic series written by...
Also expanding the experience beyond the book, which is what we're doing.
Exactly.
The way I got involved was our dear friend Yuri Lowenthal. Yuri, VO artist, was working on it with Kyle Higgins. I guess Kyle inquired to Yuri if he could reach out to me.
So you didn't know Kyle ahead of time?
I'd never met Kyle. I met him first via Zoom when I recorded for the first time at Yuri's. And then Kyle and I have become fast friends. And then I've done a panel at one of the Comic-Cons with Will Friedle and Yuri and Tara. It has been a really cool, expanded experience beyond the comic book. And I think that's what people are looking for, something that transcends the experience of just a book in hand, whether it's TTRPG or music or whatever, or a Kindle. I think doing these podcasts, and Kyle is so ingenious, he'll have QR codes in the book that'll take you to a video. He has Blacklight edition comics, the Radiant Black series. He's such a creative, inventive dude that it's a pleasure to be involved on any capacity with him.
Yeah, I love Kyle. He's such a fantastic creator, as you said. But I got to give you a shout out because, we're talking about story and we're talking about, we haven't mentioned it specifically, but the reason story touches us is emotion, right? It makes us feel something. I am blown away by your characterization of Ben Kern, who's one of the main characters in the comic. You convey so much emotion, and it's audio, right? So all you have is your voice to kind of intimate how Ben is feeling, and then have that come through, how the events of the comic and what's relayed in the podcast. Man, what tremendous job! Do you think about it a lot? How am I going to convey this? Talk just a little bit about that.
Well, the process is not much different than any other process I would have for a character, and that all starts with the script. And Kyle wrote amazing scripts, and then told me the circumstances to which Ben was meeting the story. And from there, once you understand the circumstances with this man and his children and what he's going through, the thoughts, circumstances create thoughts because characters react. They have thoughts. Thoughts create emotions. So as long as I'm thinking the thoughts of the character, the emotion just kind of is a byproduct of that,
Fantastic. That might be true, but man, you do it so well that I guess I give you credit for your incredible thoughts, your incredible insight into these characters. Because again, I've been, and here's I love this series so much, and I've longtime viewers will know this. Every time a new issue hits, I don't read the new issue when it comes out. I go back and I reread issue 1 all the way up, and then I listen to the podcast.
That's cool.
So I've heard them all. Great. So every time everything is fresh in my mind, and I'm always not and you've done a fantastic. Everybody on the podcast,
Patton, Rachel E. Cook, it's a heck of a cast.
Yeah,
it's a heck of a cast.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So,
and Kyle is next level. I mean, he thinks in 4 dimensions. That guy. And so it is such a treat to sit down and talk to him. And I don't know when he sleeps because he has more plates spinning than me, and I thought I was spinning a lot.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of the creators that are in that massive verse, it's not like they're all in the same time zone. I mean, Matt Groom's in Australia, for God's sake. I was talking to him in the middle of the night. Michael Basudel, designer and editor, is in Australia as well. So, well, one of the other things that you're known for, as we're winding down here, Todd, is SmashCon and you know, being one of us and enjoying SlamCon, and having a presence at San Diego Comic-Con. It's coming up in a few weeks. You have anything going on there? Are you going to be there this year?
I'm not going to be there.
Oh.
I am not going to be there, and because I am scheduled to appear at Shore Leave, which is a space Star Trek convention on the East Coast.
Gotcha.
So I'm able to attend, but I will be at a con, and I will be conning in spirit, but rubbing elbows with other Star Trek folks and engaging with the fans. So it's I will sadly, it'll be one of the cons. I haven't missed SDC. I think I've missed SDCC once since 2010.
Wow.
And then not counting lockdown, but I've been every year, almost every year except for those few pandemic years. But yeah, it's going to be a weird one not to be able to attend that. But we are doing a 12 Monkeys reunion show at Star Trek Las Vegas. We got Emily Hampshire, Amanda Shule, Aaron Stanford, Kirk Acevedo, Terry Vitalis, myself, Chris Monfett, and we're going to be doing a panel. And if you're a 12 Monkeys fan and this is before Star Trek Las Vegas, come on down, because it's going to be one of those. It's going to be the first of its kind. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, even though you're not going to be at San Diego, like you mentioned, you'll still be doing a con that weekend, and it's great, right? Like the people that can't make it at the San Diego Comic-Con, they're Stashwick fans. They'll have a chance.
Yeah, I'll bring the con love to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so if somebody is a big fan and they want to know about, you know, future appearances, future work, that sort of stuff, where's the best place to follow you online to know what you have coming up?
My first initial and last name, T. Stashwick on Insta, Todd Stashwick on X. Those are the places to find me. That's where I'm most active online. Yeah.
Great. And I'll put links to Todd's social media in the show notes, everybody, so if you're having trouble finding them, you can go and click there. So as we're winding down here, Todd, any last words for our audience? Anything else that you want to share?
If you're a fan of dark fantasy, if you're a fan of fun collaborative storytelling, if you're a fan of music, animation, go over to ProgCoreFantasy.com, ProgCore Fantasy.com. Help us fund, help us reach that goal. 4 blades against the shade.
100%. So we hope you have enjoyed it, everybody, talking about story, talking about process, talking about this incredible world that Todd has created with his friends, and hopefully it's going to be out in the real world for people to enjoy.
I would like that.
Soon. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate you joining us as always.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, brother. Take care.